Hello and welcome into a Thursday edition of the Jet Report. What is going on? I am Matt O'Leary, going to be hanging out with you on this lovely Thursday afternoon. I am amped up. Today we're going to talk about Mike LaFleur as a head coaching candidate. That was a story from this morning, but we have some breaking news literally minutes before just going live right now. We'll pull it up. Ian Rappaport makes it hashtag official. The doctor is in. The Jets are signing free agent offensive lineman Laurent Duvernay-Tardif after his workout on Monday. Source said Duvernay-Tardif finished a portion of his medical residency in Canada recently, liked his time with the New York Jets in 2021, and is back. Yes. Love it. Look, it's hard to be like super amped up about a November free agent signing, but this is just really good depth. He started 7 or 8 games for the New York Jets down the stretch last year. This is a guy who, if God forbid anything happens to Herbig or Laken Tomlinson, you would feel comfortable with LDT coming in. And you really can't take too much more risk with this New York Jets offensive line because of the number of injuries that they've dealt with. Let's face it, folks. Mekhi Becton, George Fant, Max Mitchell, Dwayne Brown, AVT, Nate Herbig's a little bit banged up even. That's 6 different ones right there. Injuries that they've had to deal with. And I'm sure I'm missing some. Didn't Connor McDermott get hurt too? I very well could be missing some. But the point is, this is a guy who has starting experience, liked his time so much with the garbage version of the 2021 New York Jets that he decides, I want to come back. And kudos to him, man, for finishing his residency. This is a guy who obviously has immense character. During the pandemic in 2020, stepped away from football in the prime of his career to go help out on the front lines. Like, that's just incredible stuff. Obviously, a high character guy, which is no surprise. Joe Douglas and Robert Saleh have done a really good job of bringing in a lot of high character individuals. And LDT is just that. You can't ask for a better human being. And he's a damn good player. He's started playoff games. He's the Chiefs' starting offensive guard, the right guard for the Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs in 2019. The guy can play. He's a good player, and I'm excited that the New York Jets added him. Yesterday, if you missed the show yesterday, we talked about him visiting and why he'd be such a good fit. But the news made official just now, minutes ago, at the time of going live. It was literally 1:59. And I go live here at 2:00. So really good news to start the day. But another interesting storyline that I wanted to get into from earlier today, and then we'll open it up for questions and comments for the remainder of the show, is Tom Pelissero. So he does these next head coaching or potential head coaching candidates for the next cycle coming up in 2023. And one of those guys that he listed was Jets offensive coordinator Mike LaFleur, who is only 35 years old. This is his first time as a coordinator. He was the pass game specialist for the San Francisco 49ers under Shanahan. Obviously made his way over last year with the New York Jets and has been here for the last 2 years. He's young. He's still, this is his second year. He doesn't even have 2 full years under his belt calling plays. I want to pull up what Tom Pelissero said about him in the article, and then I'll give my take on it. So he says it's probably a little soon for Packers coach Matt LaFleur's younger brother, who's still developing as a play caller and a leader. But if the Jets keep winning with a very young core, it won't be a shock to see Mike LaFleur get an interview request or two. He's personable and from the same Shanahan-McVay tree of offense that has produced many other successful head coaches. In 2021, the Jets played 4 different quarterbacks during one 5-game stretch in which they ranked number 1 in the NFL in yards per game. This season, the Jets are 5-1 since Zach Wilson returned from injury, despite all kinds of offensive line ailments and the loss of breakout rookie Breece Hall. The adaptability will serve LaFleur well whenever his opportunity comes. Now, I think he still has some more to prove as a play caller before I'm willing to say that he is a head coaching candidate. And this is someone coming from me who I would consider myself a pretty big Mike LaFleur fan. I think he's done a pretty good job here so far. Now, there are some critiques. My biggest critique of him so far was the game against the Patriots, ironically, because I thought he didn't run the ball enough. And the funny thing was early on this year, the Jets were throwing it all over the yards with Flacco, and they're saying, you got to run it more. And then when Zach Wilson comes back and Zach's throwing the ball 21 times a game, they're saying, you got to pass it more. And you got to be able to find a happy medium here, obviously. But here's what it's. I have the wrong tab open. Give me 1 second. This is Mike LaFleur, how the Jets offense has fared over the last little bit here with him. Yards was 27th last year, touchdowns 18th in terms of rushing. But overall, 26 and 28. That's been bumped up to 18 and 19 so far this year, which again that's not something that's to write home about yet. There's still room for improvement, but I think there's a lot to like about him as a player. He's still young. He's only 35. And again, I think it is too premature for him to be a head coach. But I like him a lot. I think he's pretty good at scheming up the run. And while Zach hasn't really hit his stride yet, I think we've seen times where guys were schemed open and, Zach missed them. For instance, the Patriots game is a really good example of that. Yes, I think he should have ran the ball more. Running it only 15 times against New England in that game when it was a one-score game was a crime. But at the same token, there were times where, guys were schemed open and Zach was panicking instead of stepping up. And if he continues to play like he did against Buffalo, like that's a really good example of, efficient quarterback play. And who knows, maybe if Zach has a big second half of the year, I would say, all right, I could see why a team would give him that opportunity. But I don't look at him as a real head coaching candidate just yet. That's not to say I don't like him as the Jets play caller. I do. Once again, there's room for critique and room for improvement on him. And I think he would even admit that. But overall, I think he's done a good job with this offense. And as the article says, they've had a ton of injuries on the offensive line. Their two best offensive players went down in AVT and Breece Hall, and he still got a ton out of this unit. And really, it's going to be up to Zach for him if he's going to be able to take that next step or not. If Zach starts playing really good football, whether it be this year or next year, I do think Mike LaFleur is a head coaching candidate. And I do think eventually Mike LaFleur does become a head coach because I think he's too smart not to. His brother's a head coach. He comes from that same tree. I just don't think it'll be next year. If you want to say after the 2023 season, that's probably a little bit more realistic, kind of what happened with Brian Dable, where he was with the Bills for what I think 3 or 4 years with Josh Allen before he got hired away from the Giants. I think we're going to see something similar from LaFleur. Still, work to be done, but I like the optimism around LaFleur, and it's a good problem to have. I remember when he was first hired, people were crowning him, saying, "Oh my God, it's going to be like a one and done. He's going to get hired away because of the work that he does with Zach Wilson." And that's such a first world problem to have. We're used to having these awful offenses where they give you little creativity or little excitement. That's such a good problem to have, is if your coordinator is leaving because he's getting a head coaching job, that means that you're probably good enough that you're probably an elite level offense. Again, Jets aren't there yet, but I think there is potential for this offense to become elite. And I think that would be the time where he gets hired away. Let's go through some of these comments. TJ Decker, as he says, not yet, hasn't shown enough yet, in my opinion. We're kind of in the same boat, TJ. Scott V comes in and says, Jets sign the LDT. Yes, love LDT getting signed. Absolutely. Keep it simple, RC. Who says LaFleur is head coaching material? Got to be a year early for that, don't you think? Yeah, I do think it's a year early. That's a good point. It was Tom Pelissero, as we went through. Scott V says that's a good sign for a player who's played around the league, leaving this coaching staff and wanting to come. And wanting to come back. Yeah, exactly. And we're talking about LDT here, obviously from the beginning of the show, but I am really a big fan of that. How bad is Herbig injured? I don't think yesterday we played the video on the show. It doesn't seem like Robert Saleh is really all that concerned with him. I don't think it's going to be that much of an issue. Merc Life, who's a member of the channel, you could join as well by hitting the join button down below when you're watching, says, I think Mike LaFleur becomes a serious candidate if, one, the Jets go far in the playoffs, or two, he continues his success into next year, he may be considered the next year. Exactly. I think it's a year early on LaFleur. And it's really going to be about how this Jets team finishes, how Zach Wilson finishes, for that to be the deciding factor. Who knows if like MetLife says, if the Jets, you know, go 5-3 or 6-2 or something like that down the stretch, Zach Wilson's playing really good football, they win a few playoff games and go on a little bit of a run, then maybe we're having a different conversation. I hope that's the conversation we're having, because again, that means good things are happening for your franchise, for Zach Wilson, and for this offense. Finn says Joe Douglas might have to suit up soon. I have all the confidence in the world in our guy, Joe Douglas, being able to suit up and play offensive line at a high level. I like this guy a ton. But keep him in the GM share. Spiz, what's up, man? He's hanging out with us. Says, name one rule change you want to see in the NFL, and then for fun, add some stupid rule you'd create that would never happen. He follows it up by saying, my stupid rule is each coach gets one penalty mulligan flag that if thrown, the penalty on the play against the team goes away. Yeah, I would say, like, I'm kind of going to steal yours and saying like that you could challenge a penalty. Because there are too many times where it's the penalties are really frustrating from the referees. And I think you should be able to challenge a penalty. But I'll keep it to one. And then for one like semi-realistic change, I guess it would be to eliminate kickoffs, which I think is coming, because it's not like how it used to be. Um, before it was rare that you'd get these many touchbacks because from where they kicked from. But I would just say start on the 25-yard line every time. That would be mine. Franz man says, I really hope Herbig is good to go. The O-line was really starting to gel. Yeah. And Max Mitchell looks like he's coming back. He's been available. He's been practicing. Now, I don't know if Corey Davis, I don't know if Corey Davis is going to play this week. He hasn't really practiced yet. So, we'll see. Prestige Shogun's in here too. What's up, man? He says the Jets should want to win this Sunday more than anything, especially after what Belichick just said about them. Yeah, so if you missed it, Belichick had some comments about the Jets, which is really not too surprising. But there's a couple ways to look into this one. He says, I'm pulling it up on Twitter right now, and I'm going to share it on the screen here so you guys can see it. But he says, Belichick on the New York Jets scheme under Robert Saleh. The Jets are the Jets. They have their way of doing things. Right now, the Jets are the Jets. What the hell does that mean? I'm tired of that guy. I'm very tired of Bill Belichick. But here's the thing. They need to win, one, because it's the Patriots, obviously. But number two, this is a gigantic swing game. And we've talked about it a ton this week on the preview and just, in general. If they win this game, the New York Jets move up to first place in the AFC East, no matter what else happens, because the Miami Dolphins, who are currently at 7-3 and in first, are on the bye week, and the Jets already beat them, so they would have the tiebreaker. And if they lose, they would drop to fourth place or last place in the AFC East, because the Patriots and the Jets would have the same record, and the Patriots would have the tiebreaker because they beat them twice. Keep it simple says, then again, I could see Irsay trying to pry LaFleur away from New York. I think he really likes his guy Saturday, who he hired. JK says, what up, dude? Calling it now. Jets defensive touchdown Sunday. See you all Monday. There you go. I really hope that's the case. My guess would be what? Sauce Gardner on a pick six? Fumble recovery? Finn says, Matt, is it just me or is Brax getting a kick return this weekend? I would really like to see him score in some capacity, whether it's a special teams touchdown or whether it's rushing or receiving something, because Patriots scorned him a little bit. They had to move on from him. They cut him. And you know what? I think it would be nice to get, stick it to Bill a little bit. Pete G says LaFleur needs time, just like Zach. They're both still pups. That's so true. I mean, think about it. For LaFleur, he's got 26 career games calling plays. It's been a little bit, and Zach Wilson has 19 starts, I believe. We have our first super chat of the show, thanks to Bradley. Says the new MetLife The new MetLife turf, or hopefully grass coming next year, could help with injuries on O-line players and stats. And stats show how bad the turf is. Is MetLife getting new turf? Is that confirmed? That would be big if that's the case. Oh yeah, I'm seeing it now from a website, the Giants Wire, which is USA Today, saying New York Giants safety Julian Love, the team's NFLPA rep, says the MetLife Stadium turf will be changed in 2023. Pull that up right now. Share that on the screen. That's a good call. Thank you for sharing that out. Thank you for the super chat. I'm going to minimize it just so I can show the article, but I appreciate it. This is cutting it off a little bit, so I can minimize there we go. After countless injuries for the Giants and Jets, opposing teams, a constant outcry, MetLife Stadium will get a new turf in 2023. The Giants and MetLife are in the process of getting things done for next year. That turf will be changed. The stats have shown that we are one of the worst fields in the league. It's unclear if it will be going to natural grass or moving to an alternate turf. Either way, the Field Turf Classic HD system that was installed in 2020 will be gone. Part of the challenge is the two teams and all the events that happen on the field. And so we would love grass, but if that's not feasible, then the new state-of-the-art turf that is available will have to go down instead. The Giants are on the ball and on that type of thing, and I think I think there's now a push to make everybody the same way. That'd be huge. That would be really big if that's the case. If they are getting in the new turf, that's a good sign because obviously they've been called MetLife and a few other stadiums have been called out in the past. Thank you for pointing that one out again. Keep it simple. RC says, Matt, is this the week the coin gets it wrong? Yes, the New York Jets are winning this week. I predicted 23-13 victory for the New York Jets. I don't think the Patriots offense is going to be able to score nearly enough against this Jets defense. And I think the Jets play a similar offensive game to what they did against Buffalo. Heavy run game. Don't ask Zach to do a lot. Throw the ball maybe 25 times and you'll be in good shape. V-Man's hanging with us. What's up, my friend? Says, Matt, mark my words. The Jets will win and the downward spiral of the Pats will begin. I hope you are right from your lips to God's ears. Let's go. Finn chimes in. He says, I always like kicking off to start the game, but how do you feel, Matt? I think I like kicking off more because our defense is good. Yes, I also like getting the ball at the half. So I am very big on deferring. I agree with Finn on this one. JK chimes in and says, I'm actually curious on the turf versus grass debate. Anyone know any good video breakdowns? We're going to have to take a look and see. If I don't know any off the top of my head, but I could do some research on it. JK says, also, what are the chances that the Jets can actually get into the new NYCFC stadium? Slim. They're not going to, I don't think they're going to be able to. There's not going to be enough seats. I think it's only going to be like 20 or 25,000 seats. And I don't think they want to build anything bigger than that. Klecker4 Hall of Fame says Olberg becomes the head coach and LaFleur gets fired. It's crazy. It goes cyclical, man. It's crazy how things change. Chris says, is it a possibility to kick off first but aim for Belichick's nuts? Well, you don't want to kick it out of bounds because then you're giving him great field position, but that's great. I love it. Christopher says, you think the Jets Dolphins would be a flex candidate if the division is up for grabs? Absolutely. I mean, if you remember in 2009, the Jets Bengals game got flexed into Sunday Night Football when it became a win and in game. So if that game has playoff implications, it could absolutely get flexed in. Also, I think the Jets Vikings has real, if the Jets take care of business this week and next week, I think that one has real potential to get flexed into Sunday Night Football because if the Jets win the next two games, they'll be 8-3. And I am not someone who likes primetime games usually. I love the 1:00 start. It's my favorite thing in the world, but I would take that primetime game because of Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins turns into a ghost when the lights come on. So let's do it. Prestige says the Jets got to exercise this demon once and for all. No more getting kicked around by these clowns wearing red, white, and blue. They are the one team who doesn't respect us. Beat the respect out of them. Yeah, they embarrass you. Bill Belichick and the New England Patriots want to embarrass you as the New York Jets. So that's why it holds so much weight, these games. And they've won 13 times in a row. It's, for me anyway, it's different than playing the Dolphins or the Bills. Yes, they are rivals, but um, yeah. Nick says, "Tale as old as time. Patriots score 3 to end the half and get the ball to start the third." Yeah, that's what they do. They're a pain in the butt. They are a pain in the butt with that. Joe says something that I agree with 100%. Whoever wins the turnover battle wins this game. I agree. And the Jets defense is really, really good at creating turnovers. They have the third most interceptions in the NFL. Mac Jones has 7 picks and 6 starts. The Jets picked him off once last time. Arguably could have been twice, one of them being a pick 6, but the Jets can get after him. I see that for sure. Franzman says Michael Carter, 22 rushes, 95 yards, and a touchdown. I don't think he's going to get 22 rushes in himself. I think Robinson and Carter will split a little bit more. I'm curious to see how many in Michael Carter's career, how many times he's ran the ball 20 plus, or if he's ran the ball 20 plus times in a game. I don't believe that he has. I'm going to pull it up for you guys right now while we're talking through this. His most amount of rushing attempts in a game is 16. He did it against Buffalo in November of last year. He did it against Jacksonville as well. I'm thinking somewhere around 14 or 15 carries, and then maybe another 10 or so for James Robinson, give or take. I think they run the ball about 25 times. Jets Best says, "What's Kirk's record in primetime?" I don't know off the top of my head, but it's not good. Cousins prime time games record. He's worse on Monday Night Football. 2-10 straight up on Monday Night Football. Is it going to be able to tell me? StatMuse is saying 66, 63, and 2, but that's got to be his all-time record. That can't be just in prime time. Yeah, I can't find it right now, but it ain't good. Obviously, the 2-10 one on Monday Night Football really sticks out. Mr. Downtown chimes in. He says, "I think NFL players forget how bad the Meadowlands grass was 15 years ago. Grass is harder to maintain, especially if it is for multiple sports." Yeah, the number of events they do there makes it so challenging because they do a ton of concerts. It's 2 different games. It's not easy. Christopher Sullivan says Zach Wilson, 19 of 32, 275 yards and 2 touchdowns. Wow, that'd be a huge day for him. 275 on 32 attempts would be 8.6 yards per attempt. I'm not quite at that level. I'm gonna say something like, what was my prediction? I had it. Hang on, give me a second. I had it on here. I'm gonna pull it up because I'll show you what I have for him the rest of the way. I think I've showed it on here, but I'll do it again. I have him 16 to 24, 175 yards, 7.3 yards per attempt, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. That's what I have him at this week. I think that's a little optimistic against Chicago or Minnesota or Detroit, Jacksonville, Miami against some weaker defenses. I think that's probably the time where you can get something like that done. I see us winning 24-13. I said 23-13, so we're basically on the same page. Prestige says, "I think Zach can absolutely put up great numbers against against this Patriots defense, but if the run game can silence them, so be it." Yeah, I think you need to be just a little bit more balanced. They tried to throw the ball 42 times the last time these 2 teams played, and they ran it 15. That's not their recipe for success. We need to perform Fiance? Is that what that is? Before the game, so Sam Darnold's ghosts do not haunt Zach Wilson. What is that? Seance, a meeting of which people attempt to make contact with the dead, especially through the agency of a medium. That's fantastic. Fields the best quarterback from the 2020 draft? No, I would say Justin Herbert's the best quarterback from the 2020 draft. 2021 draft, if you're asking about, I think is too early to call. Right now, Justin Fields is playing the best of the bunch, though. Anthony says, "Why do some people say the Jets have to go into New England and steal the game? What do they mean by steal? The Jets are the better team and should win. They are not favorites in this game, so it would be considered an upset. They're 3-point underdogs in this game, so I think that's what steal means in this. I agree. I think the Jets are the better team. They have the better record and more talent, but they're 0 for their last 13 against this team, and they are underdogs in this game. So I think steal is an appropriate word. We're exercising tons of demons this season. Next up, Belichick. Adam S says, looks like we signed LDT. Yep, we talked about that at the top. Things you love to see. Joseph comes in and says, LDT. Let's go. I'm pumped up. Seance. See? What do I know? Adam S is confident, says 31-13. I love that. Bob chimes in. Bob's hanging with us, says Dallas is scheduled to play Sunday night, November 27th. It's more likely the Jets-Minnesota game would be moved to Monday night. What's the Monday night game that week? What is that, week 14? Let's see. 14 schedule. No, that's week 14 is Jets Bills, so it must be week 13. We can't math here for some reason. The Monday night game is Saints Bucks. Colts Cowboys is the Sunday night game that week. Yeah, maybe. Mom says, any word on what uniforms we are going to be wearing yet? I'm assuming that the Pats will be wearing white to make us wear a different color. I have not seen that. I don't know if the Patriots have decided what uniforms they're going to wear. Did they tweet it out? I don't know if they even tweet it out usually. It doesn't really look like it says on there. I had the site yesterday. Let's see if I can find that. NFL uniforms. Yeah, gridiron uniforms. We'll do this, and then we'll get to Brian's super chat. I see it in there. I appreciate it, guys. As according to Gridiron uniform database, this one has the Jets in the all white and the Patriots on the blue and white. You guys know I love the white look, but the white on black is fine. Just no white on green. No green pants, please. I don't like the green pants at all. Brian chimes in with the super chat, says, if we're stealing this game, better wear stealth. Yeah, the all blacks would kind of look cool. Or if they are able to wear the white jerseys, go back to that white jersey with the black pants. They're undefeated in it. Joseph says, do you think we'll actually get another primetime game? I think we deserve it. I think they do. I think there's a really good shot the either week 18 against the Dolphins or the Minnesota game gets flexed into primetime, especially if it's the 8-3 Jets against the 9-2 or 10-1 Minnesota Vikings. That would be a great game. I think you have to at that point. Mitt says, this is the most important game of the season, in my opinion. The Jets have to put the league on notice with this game that the BS stops here. We are no longer the little brother in the AFC East. It's a massive, massive, massive statement game. A massive statement game. I can't express enough how important this game is for the New York Jets for a ton of reasons. One, we talked about exercising the demons, how much of a necessity that really is. But then number two, if you win this game, you're in first place. You're sitting at 7-3. That's a lot nicer than 5-4 or 6-4 rather. As much as and yes, if they lost the game, they're not out of the playoffs. They would drop to probably the 7 seed, I'd imagine. But it makes your life so much easier because you don't want to give the Patriots that tiebreaker of beating you twice. It's a huge game. MM Morris says if Zach had an int with 4 fumbles, everyone would freak out. When Fields does it, it's a great game. MM Morris says Fields has 1 fumble this year. MM Morris then says Fields had 4 in 1 game, 2 were recovered. I think we're a little too concerned about other teams' quarterbacks right now. Anthony says, Woody usually tweets out what they are going to wear. He hasn't done that this week yet. Interesting. Yeah, maybe they don't know yet, which is bizarre. I feel like usually around this time is when we find out. JK says, crazy to think that the Pats would mean more than beating the Bills last week. I think it's just because of how often this team has beaten you down in the past and just the rivalry that's been there. Brian says, I'm a little cautious about our undefeated away record. Big wins for sure, but the teams we played turned out to be not great. Yeah, I mean, this one is a huge test because while I think the Jets are better than the New England Patriots, they have the better record. Right now, they beat you once already, and they are 5-4, and they are jockeying for playoff positioning in their own right. So win this game. Show that you're the better team. Mr. Downtown comes back in and says, if Zach Wilson has at least 30 rushing yards for gain, we will win this game. He has looked more comfortable when incorporating scrambling into his play. That is true. When he tucks it and runs, I think that shows when he's the most comfortable. When he's trying to drop back and do some crazy stuff, that's not the best. He ran the ball the most amount against Buffalo, 5 carries for 24 yards. I think when he tucks it and runs, especially on 3rd down and picks it up the 1st down, that's the best. John says, remember the Super Bowl Jets won because of our defense was dominant. Namath didn't throw a pass during the second half. That's a good point. That's a great point. The Jets have had success in their history many, many times with strong defensive play. Whether it be, no matter who it is, whether it be Mark Sanchez, whether it be even the Chad Pennington days to an extent, but they won a lot of games. They won 4 playoff games on the road with Mark Sanchez as their quarterback. Can Zach Wilson do it if they get there? We'll see. Brian, a good point, says, is it too much to hope for favorable penalties this time around? Yeah, they just can't be undisciplined. They can't hurt themselves. So you know that there's going to be a favorite or a bias to the New England Patriots. So you have to do everything in your power to, make sure that you're not beating yourself. Franzman says, stay with what works. White tops, black pants. Let's go, baby. Mike D's life says, people keep saying the word rivalry. Once we start beating the Pats on a consistent basis, then it is. But until then, is it not a rival? Like, even if just because you're not winning doesn't mean that's not a rivalry. I don't agree with that. I know it's a one-sided rivalry. You could say that, but it's definitely a rivalry. Denzel Mims hanging out with us. What's up, Denzel? Says it's possible both our coordinators are head coach candidates. Ulbricht's been really good. He's really turned it around since week 3. This team has really turned it around. They're working well together. Jets win will knock Patriots out of the playoffs or gives the Jets the division. For both, yeah. That's why this one's so important, man. This game is huge for the Jets for so many reasons. Joseph says, I could only imagine that this time last year we would be asking questions about the draft. LOL. I love how competitive we are this year. We could scroll back over the last 2 years. It was about, talking about draft quarterback prospects, or now it was, do you draft a corner or do you draft an edge rusher? Should they double up on defense? Should you go with a wide receiver early on? How early do you draft a running back? Like, as fun as that is, like, I did have fun doing those videos. It's so much better to be talking about real football and playoff scenarios and about, a game in mid-November that means so much to this football team. That's all we were asking as Jet fans this year is for competitive football, and they've given you that. And they've raised the bar to where they could be and very well should be a playoff team this year. Oreo says, off the wall question. Do you believe the NFL is rigged? I'm not a conspiracist or anything, but there are a lot of iffy videos. Is a licensed entertainment just your thoughts? No, I don't think it's rigged. I really don't. There are some videos where it feels bizarre, and maybe there are some biases in there, but I think it's way too difficult to rig a league uh with so many players in it. Phil Adams says, Denzel, you should be resting up, not messing around on YouTube. LOL. Love it. Pats are on the verge of a decade of losing. We need to push them into it. That'd be nice. It's time for the tables to turn. Brian says Buffalo Jet did a mock draft and I had no idea who anyone was. Good problem to have. I know the least about the NFL draft this year. And I'll do my once the season comes to an end, I'll get it right into that and for agency. That's when I'll dive all in, but now's not the time for me to start that yet. Christopher Sullivan says, nice to see that a team that is set up for years to come, as long as they re-sign guys like Williams, Family, Huff, who gets dumped. You think Lawson and Davis will be extended for less considering injuries? Yeah, maybe they'll get like extensions that'll bring down the cap hits because both of those guys are kind of big cap I was going to say cap casualties, but they're big cap hits right now. And it's probably not sustainable to have both those guys super, super long. Mr. Downtown says, it is also key that Zach Wilson doesn't throw the ball to the other players besides Garrett Wilson. Oh, it is that throws the ball to other players. Pats will key in on him. Zach needs to trust Conklin, Mims, Barrios, and that guy named Elijah. Who? Elijah Moore. Who's that? You're right. And part of the reason is I think Garrett is just so good and gets open quickly, but they need to diversify the passing attack. That much is for sure. Currently in my daily ice bath, thought I would stop by. That's great. Ali says, we win this game, we control our own destiny. Yes, sir. Says, which receiver do you think will step up because they will take GW out of the mix? Conklin, big game. Yeah, the tight ends, I definitely think could be involved. Elijah Moore, I think, gets a little bit more involved, something like 4 catches, maybe 40, 45 yards for Elijah, something like that. Probably no Corey Davis this week. Maybe Braxton. Denzel looked good against the Pats last time. He probably left. There's probably like 100 yards left on the field for Denzel. Joe says interior D-line, linebacker, and safety are the easiest positions to fill. This will be a top 3 defense for years. Hope so. That'd be damn fantastic. What are the chances Moore comes in and makes a huge impact in this game? I don't think it's impossible just because like people were saying in the chat, and it makes a ton of sense that they're going to try to take Garrett Wilson out of the game because he beat up on him, and he's been great the last 2 weeks. He's put up 95 yards and over 100 against New England. So they're going to have all their eyes on him, and for good reason, and it might take Elijah Moore to do that. Sean White's in here. He says he and Ulbrich are not head coaches yet, but if they want any of our coaches, take them then. But we are definitely getting some picks. Yes. I think it's a year early on both those guys. I agree with Sean. I like this one here from Christopher as well. So much optimism. Hasn't felt like this since Vinny era moving into the Chad era. That's great. I have time for a few more in here. Jets Forever has been commenting. We got to put one up from him. Mims should have had 3 touchdowns versus the Patriots. I love it. Anthony S. says, I don't mind Garrett Wilson, Mims, and Moore as our trio for the future with Barrios as the 4th. I agree. I think that's pretty solid. Hey, yo, says, so are we moving on from the coin flip guy? It ends this week. As much as I love 11-6 in an AFC championship game, Jets put an end to the coin flip. They win their next 2. They're sitting at 8-3 going into the Minnesota game. LaFleur is running every trick play in his playbook. Yeah, empty the bag, win this game at all costs. Leave nothing on the field. Christopher, do you like long walks on the beach? I do. I love that in the summer. I go to the off-road beach or one of the off-road beaches here on Long Island. I've actually seen a Jet fan there who recognized me for my videos. So I appreciate it. That's one of my favorite things. What do you think about Corey Davis long-term? I don't know if he gets a second deal from the Jets. He has one more year after this. Could be a cap casualty, but I'm not running to cut him just because He's so comfortable with, or Zach is so comfortable with him. You know what I mean? He is injured a lot, and I don't think he is a number one or number two receiver. How much better do you think the Jets D can get? 85 Bears, 2000 Ravens. Those are two of the most iconic defenses in the league. Um, I think they could be a top three defense in the NFL for the next few years. I don't know if they're going to be a historic defense. That's asking a lot, but there is a ton of talent on this one. We got a Mets question. What do you thoughts on what the Mets will do this offseason? I hope they retain DeGrom and Brandon Nimmo. I don't think they're getting Judge. I think Judge is either going back to the Yankees or going to San Francisco. Um, I like that they were able to lock up Edwin Diaz, but need some more pitching help and need to retain their guy, Brandon Nimmo. Oh, some gambling advice from our guy Rico. I love this. Bet for the game. Jets money line. Jets money line. Jets alternate spread -2.5. Garrett Wilson anytime touchdown plus 564. $100. We're going to cash this out, baby. Best of luck, Rico. I love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. If/when New England plays dirty, Jets must send Clemens into their sidelines. Send him out there, baby. I love it. Oreo says, at this point, if you had to choose, what are you looking forward to most? Free agency or the draft? Feels weird you're not making videos at this time this year. It does feel weird. Probably the draft, just because I love the 3-day live stream that we do with Ryan and Greenby. That's the best. Brian says, I hope Clemens raises to Ray Lewis infamy minus the whole murder thing. Yeah. Oof. Scott says, I would resign Bryce Huff over Carl Lawson. Huff is our best pass rusher. Carl Lawson's under contract next year. So if you're saying you cut him and save the money, I guess you could do that. But I do think you need to resign Bryce Huff for sure. And Sergeant CVO says, extend JD, which I think is where we're going to leave off on today's show. Very much so. Appreciate it, guys. Thank you so much for hanging out with me on this lovely Thursday. Go Jets, baby. Subscribe if you're new. I'll talk to you next time.